Apple at their September event announced a 10.2-inch iPad. Now this is a completely new size for the iPad. In the past, the base iPad screen size has always been 9.7 inches. There's now no longer a 9.7-inch screen in the iPad lineup. This is a first time ever. Everything is now either above 10 inches or the iPad mini. During this event, Apple compared it a lot to a PC laptop, so I really wanted to set out and find out if you really could work completely off this device as a laptop. I already did a 30-minute really in-depth video on iPad OS, so I'll link that below. If that's kind of more what you're looking for, I'll make sure there's a link below. You can go check that out. But this is just going to focus on the hardware of the new 10.2-inch iPad. I'm not going to get into any of the iPad OS stuff. Like I mentioned at the top of the video, it's now a 10.2-inch display. Now, I heard from a lot of people saying that they thought this was going to be too big for them. I did some research. It's only 0.4 inches taller and only 0.2 inches wider than the previous 6th generation iPad, which was one of the 9.7-inch displays. It's not a lot bigger. It's not so much bigger that it's going to be too big for a lot of people to hold in their hands. I don't think it'll make a noticeable difference. The screen size, however, is noticeably bigger. They were able to make the screen size bigger by shrinking the bezels. That's the black bars around the side. This is how they got the screen to become bigger without making the device monstrously bigger. A couple of things it doesn't have that I'm not really surprised about, to be honest, is it doesn't have ProMotion or True Tone. ProMotion is pretty much reserved for the iPad Pros. That's the 120 Hz refresh rate. And then True Tone is the tech that basically balances the screen's white balance for the room. So if you're in a really yellow room, it adjusts the screen's white balance to be a little more white. Personally, I don't use True Tone, mostly because when I'm editing video or editing photos, I need to have a perfect color representation, and True Tone messes that up because not all apps that should disable it when the app opens disable it. So that's kind of a bummer. I've never really used it on my iPad. I've used it on my iPhone, but I don't use it on my iPad. But True Tone is on the iPad Air and it is on the iPad Pro, just not this low-end one. The screen is, at least to me, noticeably brighter than the 6th generation one. I think it works a little bit better, works better outside, but the biggest issue is it's very, very reflective. I just shine a little light in it. It's basically a mirror. I can see myself in it. So it's kind of, I mean, it's kind of a $300 mirror almost. I know I said I wasn't going to talk about iPad OS, and I'm not, but I get asked this question every time a new iPad comes out. So does this run 2 iPhone apps in split view, so when you put 2 apps side by side, or does it run 2 iPad layout apps? So for those that don't know, the smaller iPads run, including this iPad, this one does, it takes 2 iPhone layouts. So if you have an app open and you put another app next to it, it moves to their iPhone layouts as opposed to their iPad layout. It all has to do with screen real estate. It has nothing about holding features back. It's legitimately about screen size. The only iPad that can do it is the 12.9-inch iPad Pro. Okay, so one thing that worried me when this iPad was announced was that it has the A10 processor. Now that's the same chip that was in the previous 6th generation iPad. For reference, that's the iPhone 7 chip. It was a great chip, it's a fine chip, but it's getting a little bit old. I was kind of nervous when they announced it that I'd get it and it would just be slow. So I really wanted to run it through its paces. Like I said, I was gonna treat it like a laptop, and my laptop needs to edit video. So that was one of the very first things I did. I filmed a few clips of it, I threw it in LumaFusion, and I made a montage of it. It wasn't anything long, I just wanted to see how it handled, and it chewed it up, spit it out. It was fantastic. So I started editing one of my other videos in it. I just released a video, 10 tips for the iPad part 1. I edited in that, I put it in there, edited it, chopped it all up, color corrected, put everything in there, and it was fine-ish. I was able to edit in it. I had to turn the preview down in LumaFusion to balance in order to get smooth playback. Normally I just leave it on best and like it just is completely fine on my iPad Pro, but this one I had to turn it down. To be expected, completely understand. It's a $329 iPad versus, you know, an iPad Pro. Like, it's not going to be the same performance. But I was able to edit video on it, so that was pretty important. I also threw some audio in there, chopped up some audio. That was fine in Ferrite. That worked really well. I've also noticed a lot of photographers are starting to edit photos off their iPad, so I wanted to see how that handled too. So I took some raw photos. These are shot on a Canon EOS R, and I edited them right in LumaFusion. handled it fine. It showed all the effects. It did a really good job of it. The export, the render time did take slightly longer than, what my iPad Pro is, but again, that's to be expected. This is not an iPad Pro. The important part is it did the job, and that's what is awesome. It's, again, $329 computer that did the job. I was able to edit photos, videos, and audio. Those are my three main things. I can't draw to save my life, so I didn't even try with that, but yeah, those are the three main things I do on my iPad Pro, and this computer could do that. The biggest upgrade to me is not the screen size, but it's the fact that it got the smart connector. The smart connector started off as an iPad Pro feature. This was the ability to connect a keyboard to the iPad that didn't have to pair via Bluetooth and didn't have to charge, which to me is a big thing. That's a big important way that I use my iPad. So the smart connector keyboard that it got is actually the same as the iPad Air and the iPad Pro 10.5 inch. So if you're gonna buy one of these, just quick word of warning, I went on Amazon and bought one off Amazon and I saved $50. I'll put a link to the one that I bought. Hopefully it hasn't changed in price since then, so you guys can get the deal. But yeah, the one I bought was $50 off. So instead of, I think it's $160, which kind of seems a lot considering the iPad is only $329. Like, maybe knock some money off that Apple, because that's a little pricey in my book. But if you do really want one of those, go check out Amazon first and save yourself some money. The smart connector keyboard itself is fine. It's the one that, like I said, it's the one on the iPad Air. It's been the one that's on the iPad Pro 10.5, and it works great. It's small, compact. It's not a full-size keyboard for obvious reasons. Because of the device size, it can't be a full-size keyboard. But I have big hands, and I was able to type on it easily. I didn't really mess up anything. Every once in a while I mess up a word, but that's probably just because I'm not a very good typer. I mess up words all the time when I'm typing, even on my iPad Pro. So that's probably more on me than it is on that keyboard. Despite the fact that it was compact, it was comfortable to work on. I typed quite a few scripts out on it, and it worked great. I mostly worked in drafts, and yeah, thumbs up, it worked great. The one thing I will say about that smart connector keyboard though is the viewing angle is not great. It sits too far forward for me. It's kind of an awkward angle, especially if you're sitting at a right ergonomic, situation. It sits too far forward, and it's not great. It's manageable, you get used to it. It's not the end of the world if you want to use it, but I don't know if I would want to make this my main computer to write off 8 hours a day. Like, I don't think I could personally do that because of how forward the angle sits, which sounds ridiculous, but then when you start using it, you really notice it. So this iPad, like the previous one, still has support for the Generation 1 Apple Pencil. Not bad, not great. It's a great device, but I'm really looking forward to the Generation 2 Apple Pencil coming down the line, kind of like how the Smart Connector has and things like that. I just think the Generation 2 Apple Pencil is a much better pencil, especially considering it sits right on top of the device, but that obviously means they'll have to completely redesign those iPads, which comes at a cost, and so on and so on. So hopefully in the future, those iPads get Gen 2 Apple Pencil. For now, Gen 1 is fine. If you're really, really interested in drawing and making like the iPad like your notebook and like really like just being an artist and drawing, I'm not a drawer. I can't draw to save my life. But if you're interested in that, maybe check out the iPad Pro first and then go from there. My biggest disappointment at the September event was the lack of USB-C, both on the iPad and the iPhone. While Lightning's okay, it's fine, I'm ready for the USB-C revolution. Why? Because iOS and iPadOS just added support for external storage, and with Lightning, it doesn't work very well. A lot of drives require power, and Lightning doesn't provide that, so then you have to get this weird dongle that can do both USB and Lightning, USB for data, Lightning for power, and it becomes a whole mess. So when we can just go USB all the things, it's going to be great. I'm really looking forward to that. Hopefully next year we start to see USB-C come to more products in the iOS lineup. One thing the iPad Pro has really going for it that just knocks itself out of the park as far as other tablets are concerned are its speakers. I know that sounds weird, but until you hear them, they're really great. For a tablet computer, obviously they're not like these, really nice Bose speakers or whatever the head big speaker manufacturers are now. But for a tablet computer, they sound great. Now, this 10.2-inch iPad, they're not bad, they're not great. They're not the stereo ones that the iPad Pro has. It's the two that have been always on the bottom that have, always been there on the iPad. Fine, not great. not bad, not great. I would love to see an improvement in the speakers on the iPad. I, for one, listen to a lot of podcasts just playing right out of my iPad speakers when I'm getting ready in the morning and things like that. Battery life. Now, this is something that's important to a lot of people, especially considering Apple's targeting this as a laptop replacement. Laptop batteries typically get all-day battery life. iPad, what did it get? So for me, I got all-day working battery life. That was not an issue. I had some left over, not a problem. I was writing scripts, notes, I was doing task management, emails, things like that. I also watched some videos, and like I mentioned earlier, I did edit some videos as well. I never had a charge in the middle of the day. The only time I plugged into was to test external storage, which worked fine, but like I said, you had to use that stupid dongle. So over dongles. The battery life, it was great. It worked fine. It was 2 thumbs up. Portability is something that's really important to a lot of people as well, and as a 10.2-inch iPad, super portable. It could fit into any bag that I have personally. I imagine if you have like a handbag or a purse or something like that, it could fit into that with ease. I have a Peak Design backpack and I just put it in the top pocket. I didn't even worry about putting it in the tablet pocket. I just put it in the top pocket on its side and it fit perfectly. As far as portability goes, it's great. In fact, it's probably why I'm going to keep it around as kind of a portable writing machine that I can just take with me, walk down to the park, write. Sometimes I just, when you sit in the same room for a few hours in a day writing, you kind of get to go stir crazy a little bit and you just need to get out. So I could see this being, just grab it, walk down to the park, set it up, write, and go. Like, I could see this being really good for something like that. Again, I don't know if I'd want to make it my main computer, but if you're somebody that needs ultra portability over everything else, yeah, this would be perfect for that. All right, so let's talk about pricing. I've said throughout this video a few times that it starts at $329, same as the 6th generation iPad and that iPad before that. Great price for any iPad, except for the fact it comes at 32 gigs. 32 gigs is not enough storage in 2019. I just don't think it's okay for Apple to ship that. So for me, the starting price is really $429, which is 128 gigs. Now, I did buy the 32 gig one. Honestly, I kind of pre-ordered it in a panic. I meant to get the 128 one, but I hit the wrong button and I didn't realize it till later. So I think this really starts at 128 gigs. Unless you're really just using this to watch video that you're not going to store locally, or you just want to use it to write text, and that text, those documents are being stored in the cloud or whatever, I guess 32 would be okay, but it just doesn't seem like enough storage to me if you want to do anything like photo editing, video editing, anything like that. It's definitely not enough. Now, the other thing to keep in mind about the pricing is the iPad Air starts at $499 for 64 gigs. Now, that has the A12 processor, so it's a little bit newer processor, which probably means it's going to be supported by iPad OS longer. So for just a little bit more money, you could probably get a better iPad that'll last a little bit longer. Maybe it'll be faster, that's for sure, and it has a slightly bigger screen as well. So who's this iPad for? Well, anyone that wants to start working off the iPad, this is a great starting point. If you're interested in getting into shortcuts, this is a great starting point. It has the Siri trigger phrase that I'm not going to say because my HomePod right behind me is going to go off if I do. It's great. If you want to get into shortcuts automation, this is a great place to start. If you want to start playing around with LumaFusion, maybe go with the iPad Air because it'll be slightly faster. If you want to play with Ferrite, it could probably do that. If you want to do some photo editing, yeah, it can do it. But creativity stuff, I'd probably go to the iPad Air, or definitely look at the iPad Pro because that's what those are for. But anyone that just wants to be a writer, somebody that just wants to consume media with an iPad, anyone that just wants to play around with shortcuts, I can't stress enough how playing around with shortcuts can help you. But this iPad is for that. That's what this iPad is for. It's for consumers, it's for writers, it's for people that want to play around with automation. It's for that. Creatives, look at the iPad Air, but definitely look at the iPad Pro. Those will definitely fit your needs slightly better. I mean, you could try the $329 iPad, but I just have a feeling that it's not gonna be enough oomph, enough speed for you guys. So I know for me it was fine, but it's not something I'd want to work off every single day. There's no way I would have been able to do my iPad OS video on this iPad. Absolutely not. There's no way. It would have taken way too long to render, and the preview just wouldn't have been up to snuff. So I wouldn't want to use it as a video editing tool, but writing shortcuts, playing around with apps, task management, email, media consumption, it's perfect for that. For $329, you can't beat that price for a full-on computer. I was able to answer email, write, play around with automation, play around with serious apps. It's a great iPad at this price. Yeah, it's not as fast as its bigger brothers, but if this is your price range, this is still a great computer for you to get. And yes, I am using the word computer because the iPad is a computer. If you guys have any questions about it, let me know in the comments below. I'll try and answer them as quickly and to the best of my ability as possible. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.